This week is NNC Film Festival, and during this, we have been getting a bunch of news in regards to especially DC animated projects. However, one of the most hyped ones many of us have been looking forward to is the actual trailer and full announcement of the Batman Nightfall complete adaptation. And it's going to be a trilogy of animated movies. And we got the trailer released today, shortly after it was released to the public after the film festival when it was released, and this gives me so much hype and excitement. This is probably one of, if not the biggest Batman comics ever written, because to this day, people keep recommending Knightfall. It is one of the longest story arcs for Batman. There are 3 full compendiums for it, and even a prequel-esque story graphic novel that is called Road to Nightfall that is supposed to help set up the events of Nightfall. And Nightfall is famously known as the arc that fully introduces one of Batman's greatest rogues, one of the best Batman villains ever created, Bane. And it is iconic for him literally breaking Batman's back. And also one of the key stories that was loosely adapted for the Dark Knight Rises movie by Christopher Nolan. And I'm not gonna lie, I have issues with that movie, but I have to rewatch it again to be fully sure. Either way, Nightfall is a story that many people highly recommend, that many people that have read it constantly tell people to read and quote back to. And people still end up showing all these different panels and images from this comic book run that I've been wanting to read it myself. And admittedly, I have not read Nightfall yet. I have just heard it through literal cultural osmosis, throughout just people mentioning it every chance they get, and just seeing it every other time when I'm in a comic shop with their big-ass compendium and really cool-looking covers. But now you're getting a true adaptation of this comic book storyline in animated form, and it's the first animated Batman movie that we've had in a good bit, and it's adapting completely, faithfully, a storyline from the comics that is critically acclaimed, and I cannot wait. Now, you've heard me just yap at this point. What does this trailer show us? Well, this is just basically a full-blown announcement trailer that we're getting this trilogy, which, from what I can tell, is showing different specific clips from not just the first movie that we're going to be getting, but also from the second and third. Because based on what I can assume, the first movie is most likely going to end with Bane doing, famously, him breaking Batman's back. Because at the beginning of this trailer, we get some allusions that stuff's happening in Gotham, and that people need Batman, with a couple of action sequences. And Batman saying how they have to stop these 3 villains, talking about Mr. Freeze, Scarecrow, and what it looks like the Joker with the Bane basically coming in later on in the trailer. Which, first off, I am loving the designs, because this is something that was just instant when people were kind of thinking about, are they going to have their own different art style to just adapt the story, like how we had with like the previous storylines of Batman getting adapted, like most recently with like specifically The Long Halloween, if we're being honest. That is a different art style from the comic, but the comic art style is incredibly unique and could have, at the time, been difficult to fully adapt, so the art style you can understand. But with Nightfall, you can literally feel like these are the 80s comics ripped right off the page, from Batman's more rugged cape and the longer ears, to Azrael's suit, the way Mr. Freeze looks, the original Bane design faithfully adapted into animation, and later on, when we get to Azrael's Batman suit. All the artwork just looks so good, and from the brief instances that we get of animation, it looks clean. Now, when is this releasing? Rumors state that it's supposed to release the first movie towards the end of this year, towards the end of 2026, and then release it a couple months apart, for all we know, throughout 2027 with the last 2 movies. But we still don't have any real information, all we know that it's coming soon. Now, as we all know, this era of comics for Batman is when Tim Drake is Robin. And this is, I believe, the first movie animated sequence with Tim Drake as Robin since the new Batman adventures in like the late 90s, early 2000s. It has been that long since we've seen Tim Drake as Robin in any adaptation outside of Young Justice for that TV show. Which is kind of crazy. He's been Robin he's been one of the longest Robins that we've had in comics for a good bit. But either way, Tim Drake is getting some shine, which I'm very happy for. And in this beginning sequence, he mentions John Paul, aka John Paul Valley, who is Azrael. And Nightfall very heavily shows the story of Jean Paul Valley and shows how he admires Batman in his mission, but he is a much more darker, more brutal Batman. He is someone who effectively has a very strong religious center, but in DC, he is part of a more cult-ish following when it comes to just sheer unbridled, absolute justice in a way, which can be seen as clashing with Batman's actual ideals, which is why this is a very formative storyline for him, because right now, Tim Drake is saying in this trailer that Jean Paul's training is going well, as we see an image of what I believe is Jean Paul in an all-black suit beating down some criminals. And so, this is probably going to be setting up for not just Jean Paul being fully brought into the fold over time throughout the first movie, but later on with the confrontation of Bane. It's also one of the more chaotic nights in Gotham that's going on at this point, due to, at the beginning of the trailer, Arkham Asylum exploded, and that's why there are multiple villains going across Gotham and causing trouble, as we see throughout this trailer. I mentioned 3, but those are the 3 notable ones I wanted to bring up when it came to, Mr. Freeze, Scarecrow, and Joker, and now Bane. But we also get to see other characters from Batman's Rogues Gallery, like Two-Face and some minions of the Penguins, and even the Riddler, who is wondering that some things aren't right. Now, obviously, the big thing that looks like that could be the end of the first movie, halfway through this trailer, is when Bane enters Wayne Manor, saying how Batman's the greatest detective, but he didn't see me coming, as he venoms up, and the animation that shows quickly of Bane just roiding out looks really cool. Very clean, very quick, as Bruce just puts the cowl back on, injured and tired from a long night of what we can presume is him rounding up as many villains from Arkham as possible so he can square up against Bane. And this will most likely be the ending fight of the very first movie, which ends in Bane breaking the bat. The most iconic moment in that run. Which we then transition to Bane saying to chaos reign in Gotham, as you see, utter bedlam in this trailer, as Tim Drake goes to Jean Paul Valley saying that they have to help Batman. As Jean Paul puts on a gauntlet that we will end up seeing for his own Batman suit, as Batman is supposed to be recovering during this instance, and Jean Paul is supposed to take up the mantle of Batman during the segment, with Tim Drake being his Robin to kind of help him be steered in the right direction. Which, in a brief cut of Tim and what I presume Bruce just gliding down, Batman is just brutalizing a guy through a freezer for some reason. I could surmise that this might be Jean Paul in the original Batman suit to kind of keep up the facade of the main Batman being around while Bruce is recovering, and an image of the Joker behind a camera dressing like a director saying that it's a bit of a dark and gritty tone for Batman. I'm not sold on this Joker voice at this point. The voice acting so far has been pretty good in this instance for this trailer. However, I'm not sold on the Joker yet. If I hear the laugh and it's good, I'll probably be sold. Now, one of the villains in this montage that we see, I think, might be a version of Mad Hatter. Please correct me if I am wrong, because I most certainly am in that instance, because, again, I have not read Nightfall. I'm going off of someone who's going in this completely blind with just surface-level information and just talking about something I'm hyped about. But we then get that image of the Riddler that I mentioned earlier, some Penguin goons, and then we get a really cool slow walk sequence of Jean Paul in his Azrael suit, the red, the black, as his blades coming out from his fists ignites on fire. And it looks so damn cool. Azrael is one of the coolest characters from the Bat family that I've seen, and I really got to know him more in terms when I was reading the DC Rebirth era of Detective Comics, when he was part of the Gotham Knights with Tim Drake, Batwoman, Orphan, and Clayface. That was a really cool run of comics that was really getting interested in Azrael, and he recently, I believe a year or two ago, had his own miniseries to help expand more on his character. And this is something that I've seen since the trailer came out, really quickly, and I kind of agree with this. This movie can do for Azrael what the adaptation of Under the Red Hood did for Jason, because that movie really brought Jason more into the limelight, into more of the mainstream of people knowing who he is. And even more casual Batman fans won't know who Azrael really is. At best, they'll probably feel like they know the name somewhere, but they won't know who he is. And so these string of movies could do for Azrael what the Under the Red Hood did for Jason and the Red Hood character. So I am genuinely very excited to see Azrael just kick ass in his original suit and eventually in his next suit. And this is where I think the middle of this trailer is showcasing what's going to happen in the second movie. And as we transition to like the last 10 seconds, I believe this is where we're getting stuff from the third movie, because we see Nightwing in a burning building fighting what I can only presume to be the fully mechanized bat suit that Azrael will be wearing towards the end of the second movie, or the main section of the third and final movie of Nightfall, with the last instance being of a claw on the ground, Bane looking over, as we see Azrael in a quick shot in his Batman suit, looking sick as hell. And this is the one other thing besides the image of Bane breaking Batman, is the image that I know Knightfall for. The Azrael suit. The iconic Azrael Batman suit, and it looks so damn cool. And I genuinely cannot wait for when this movie comes out. And now I'm more motivated to read the comic this is based off of for two reasons. One, to be prepared for when these movies come out, and read what could, I believe, be adapted for each movie, and because I would really like to make some videos on Nightfall once I fully read it and understood it, because this is one of the most iconic Batman stories ever penned to paper, and I really do want to experience it in both the comic form and its adaptation, so that once everything's all said and done, we can see if there's anything that was altered or changed for this movie, or if it's 100% one-for-one adapted, maybe with some slight alterations for all we know. I'm not sure. Either way, this trilogy is going to be fantastic. I've heard so many good things about Nightfall, and if it follows that genuine storyline, and if this trailer is kind of being mostly mapped out, like each section of the trailer every 20 seconds is going to be roughly like each movie that we're going to be seeing, and it's just what we have fully finished is going to be stuff from the first movie. I'm excited. I'm genuinely curious to see what's going to happen, and I'm really excited to go into this event with literally fresh eyes, with no real indication of how this story goes and who is fully involved in how things progress. But if you're a comic fan, if you've read Nightfall, let me know if you enjoyed it. Is it your favorite story arc for Batman in general, like I've heard some people on the internet say? What did you think of this trailer? Are you excited for this trilogy of movies to come back? And what other Batman or DC comics would you like to be adapted into solo DC animated movies going on in the future? Let me know in the comments down below, and once more, if you haven't already, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. Really helps, and it shows you guys enjoy the content I make here on the channel, and shows you want to see more. With all that said and done, hope you all have an awesome day.